Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee, Thursday, the 23rd of February 2023. My name's Caleb Tomlinson. I'm the Councillor for Bamber Bridge West, and I'm also the Chair of this committee. Committee members and members of the public are reminded that this meeting is streamed live to YouTube. And if you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public who wishes to speak on a certain item and you have registered, you have 4 minutes to make recommendations. Come forward to the microphone and press the speak button, introduce yourself and make your representations. Voting will be undertaken using the electronic system, and the outcome of the vote will then be confirmed by our legal officer, TAS, once complete. If you have got mobile phones with you this evening, which I'm sure you have, could you put them onto silent, please? We're not expecting a fire alarm this evening, but if the alarm does go off, the fire exits are behind you, and we meet on the grassy verge on West Paddock. So if I can now ask everyone to introduce themselves, we will start with the young lady on my left.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tasneem Safdar. I'm the Legal Services Team Leader and I'll be assisting the committee this evening.
Good evening, Councillor Mal Donoghue. I'm the Vice Chair of the Planning Committee and also represent Severn Stars.
Ben Story, Democratic Service Officer.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Caroline Moon and I represent Buckshorn Worden.
Good evening, I'm Claire Hunter, Councillor Claire Hunter, representing Bamber Bridge East.
Gareth Watson, Camp Green, Gregson Lane.
Chris Lomax, Wantley Dale East.
Good evening, Councillor Phil Smith, representing New Lumpton and Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor Harry Hancock, Broad Oak Ward, Pemberton.
Good evening, Damien Bretherton, Walton Dale West.
Good evening, Councillor Will Adams, and I represent Middlefirth in Penwortham.
Good evening, everyone. Councillor James Flannery in Middlefirth, Penwortham.
Good evening, everyone. Mary Green, Councillor for Moss Side and Midshall.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Development Management Team Leader.
Good evening, Linda Ashcroft, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Daniel Power, Senior Planning Officer.
Good evening, Stephen Brown, Planning Manager.
Good evening, John Harrison, Interim Director of Planning and Development.
Okay, thanks everybody. There's no need to do absences because Councillor Bretherton is standing in for Councillor Barry Yates. Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. It's not a declaration of interest. It's John Hesketh's apologies. He's had a hospital appointment this afternoon and wasn't quite sure whether he was going to be back in time. So I said if he wasn't here, I would just record his apologies. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. So we have apologies from Councillor Hesketh. I will now hand over to my Vice Chair because at the last council meeting, last Planning Committee meeting, luckily for me, I was rather unwell.
Right, thank you, Chair. Right, so we come to the minutes of the last meeting. I presume you've all read them. Councillor Smith?
I've certainly read them, Chair. You think nothing less of me, and I would propose that we adopt the minutes.
Right, well, I'll propose them and you second them, yeah?
Well, I just beat you to it,
sorry.
Chair, so you need to work a bit quicker than that, I think.
Hang on, we have got a thing of interest here. So
just a quick amendment. There was we note the public attendance. It's pulled through as 0. Obviously, we know that was a bit more than 0. It was 143. So it's just I'll make that amendment just to make that clear for everyone.
Right.
I'm sorry, Chair. Could I have that amendment again, Ben? I missed that.
Sorry, Chair. With regards to the public attendance at the last meeting, it's pulled through on the minutes as 0. It should be 143.
Wow.
Okay, so right, so I'm proposing the minutes. Councillor Phil Smith is seconding them. So can we go to the vote, please? Show of hands, yeah? Yeah.
We'll just do show of hands. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. It's been approved.
Okay, the minutes have been approved. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Donoghue. All right, item 5 this evening, appeal decisions. Stephen, if we could have a report off you, please.
Yes, thanks, Chair. We've got one appeal to report tonight. It relates to the former funeral home just behind the Civic Centre here off Broadfield Drive. So the proposal was for a detached bungalow on part of the original plot associated with actual Warren dwelling itself. It was just set to the right as you go into the development between the Warren and the public highway. So the inspector concluded that the small scale of the property in relation to the other larger executive style homes would make it appear contrived given its close positioning to the access drive. She considered it would appear visually incongruous within this context and failed to respond to the characteristics of the locality. She also felt that the usable garden space would be awkward and restricted in shape and an unpleasant space given its proximity to the built development and be heavily shaded. So on that basis, the appeal was dismissed, Chair. Thank you.
Good news. Thanks for that, Stephen. Moving swiftly on, item number 6 this evening, Avondale Drive, Lostock Hall. Debbie, if you would like to present the item and tell us exactly why you are presenting the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Right, as Chair's correctly said, it's the former Lostock Hall Primary School site on Avondale Drive in Lostock Hall. Committee made the decision to approve in December of last year, subject to a Section 106 legal agreement. We're not quite got to the point where it was signed, so the decision hasn't been issued yet. It's a bit of an odd one. If a statutory consultee objects and council is minded to approve, in certain circumstances we have to pass that back to the Secretary of State for a decision to be made. In the time between the decision being made and issued, Sport England, who are a statutory consultee, have objected. And they did that after the decision, and we didn't know anything about that until very, very late in the day. They've objected to loss of the playing field, which was used within 5 years, then that's their threshold. When we consider the use of the facility as an educational establishment, which ceased in 2010, was demolished in 2021, and the last licence that LCC as landowner gave for others to use the sites, unrelated organisations, was in 2014. That 5-year threshold for as playing fields, in our opinion, has not been breached. But because Sport England are a statutory consultee, we've got to take the comments into account. We've taken legal counsel advice, and their opinion is that whilst we don't need to pass it on to the Secretary of State, because the 5-year threshold refers to playing fields used by an educational establishment, not just playing fields, we do need to make a new decision having regard to Sport England's comments. All the other matters have been resolved and they were considered acceptable by your decision in December. So the principle has been established, but I'll go through it again to refresh your memories. It's a 1.5 hectare site bound on all sides by residential properties. The old school buildings which were in this bottom corner were demolished and the use ceased quite some time ago. Playing fields, as I say, are defined by the consultation directorate as playing fields used by an educational establishment. And that bit's the crux of the matter. The site's bare, but it's secured by former school fencing and it's allocated for housing in the local plan. The application is for 52-storey dwellings, a mix of type and design. They're all affordable with social intermediate housing split, so 100% affordable. Primary access will be on the western side off Avondale Drive, and 19 dwellings will have private access from Avondale Drive and Wilkinson Street in the east. Pedestrian access is also possible off Wilkinson Street, and there is off-road parking within the site to adopted standard. It's a similar density to the locality. It's a fairly built-up locality. The policy Policy D1 states that it's an estimated 30 units, and I know there was some concern about that, but that's not a minimum or a maximum. It's just a starting point, and it has cleared through examination of the local plans, so officers aren't concerned about the density. The scheme itself remains compliant in separation terms, and all the other concerns that members had at the time were addressed, and that was reflected by your earlier approval. There will be 6 complementary house types in brick and decorative render, and we've got a material schedule for that. This visual shows the street scene from the proposed access on Avondale Drive with a small local area of play here. Public open space will be in the northwest corner, and the little play area hasn't got any equipment or facilities. It's just a fenced area with seating for the under 60s, so it's fairly low key. Some trees will have to come out. Most are being retained, but there've been mitigation with 31 replacements through site landscaping and garden landscaping as well. So there'll be a relatively green field in what is quite a built-up, dense urban area. The garden sizes reflect those of the wider area as well. This is just a few photographs really to refresh your memory. This is the site from Avondale Drive, Moss Lane corner. That's the western, southern sides. It's secure and it's open, but it's part hard standing, and the bit furthest away is the remainder of the playing field. The site from Moss Lane, which is in the south, you can see Avondale Drive on the left. Moss Lane, which is in the south, viewed from Wilkinson Street in the east. And Moss Lane in the south, Moss Street in the east, which were viewed from Avondale Drive. As you can see, they're not very green spaces. It is a very urban environment, so the public open space on site should assist with that. And that's just Avondale Drive viewed from Wilkinson Street. Residential on all sides. The last one shows the boundary of the properties on Brown Edge Road, a very well-screened northern edge, and the public open space will be along that edge as well, with the access roughly where the blue arrow on the left that says Avondale Drive would be. As I said earlier, last committee you were minded to approve with conditions subject to a legal agreement. As that permission's already been granted, the decision then tonight is whether the same approval should be granted subject to Sport England's objections. In light of Sport England objections even. When we take into account the 5-year threshold that Sport England require us to work to, and the site closed and it's been unused as playing fields for much, much longer than that, officers and council are satisfied that permission should again be granted. It's a policy compliant 100% affordable housing scheme in an area of need. It's passed examination as a housing site in the local plan, and we would recommend approval with conditions, again subject to signing the 106 legal agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. Could we do something about the volume? I struggled to hear some of that. Sorry about that. So basically, this is exactly the same application that we approved in December 2022, okay? I don't have any objectors this time. I don't have any supporters, don't have the ward members. I do have the agent, Sarah Jones, who is available if we have any queries, but I'm just going to bring this into committee, Councillor Smith, and then Councillor Adams.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Often Sport England are very, very late with these things and sometimes put up, I would call sort of contrived objections. I don't mind saying that, I have to say. Nevertheless, I mean, I've read the report in detail, as I think all members have. It's in the local plan for housing. The material considerations in favour are substantial. And what's just as important is that the applicant has taken on board all the objections to it last time and made some amendments to it. It would appear maybe that the local community would be happy with that. At the moment, the site is a bit of a mess, and it could be left in a bit of a mess if nothing happened to it for a long, long time. So on that basis, Chair, I will propose that we approve the application. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Adams, then Councillor Moon.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think this is the third time this application's come to the committee. So I think we've kind of gone to and fro with it for quite some time and gone into fairly large amount of detail as well. My opinion is we never like to see sport fields being lost. But I do think in this circumstance we need to be fairly pragmatic about it. I think this is a good scheme. It's 100% affordable, and I think that area of the borough has just had quite a bit of investment in terms of some of the playing surfaces that are now available. So while I wouldn't like to see any sport surfaces lost, I do think in this case I'm quite happy to support approval. So I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Moon.
Thanks, Chair. Just to concur with what's been said, really, I think Sport England, at the end of the day, they've a job to do, they've a role to carry out, and protecting sports pitches is one of those. And what Councillor Adams has just said, I don't think any of us would likely just see sports fields disappear. That's not what we're about. But I just think you have to take it in context of what this playing facility was, where it was, what it was, how long ago it was last available. And the fact that as a borough council, I think we are very pro playing pitches. I think we're quite positive in the way we've gone about making sure we've got facilities available. And as Councillor Adams has just said, in that area, in that vicinity, there's some new facilities come forward. So I think it's fair to say, as a member of this committee, I've looked at it, thought about it, take on board what they're saying, but I disagree with them, and I'm happy for us to continue as we were.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Moon. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, only a few pointers from me, really. This committee is always very fair, and they always consider things as they come. On the basis that there's no residents here tonight objecting, quite clearly, that's in contrast to when affairs come to committee. So, yes, it looks like the work has been done, but I would just like to note for the committee and for the consultant who's representing the applicant tonight that the conduct of the residents was significantly better than the applicant last time. And I just think it can't go without being noted, really, that that kind of behaviour is not accepted in the council, but the policy is a policy and we are a fair council. So, thanks, Chair.
Point well made, Councillor Flannery. Do we have any other proposals on this application? So we have had a proposal for approval from Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Adams, and widely commented on. Can we go to the electronic vote? This is for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, in respect to the development for the former Lostock Hove Primary School, members are minded to approve the application, and the decision is delegated to the Director of Planning and Housing in consultation with Chair and Vice Chair of Planning Committee upon successful completion of the legal agreement to secure a financial contribution towards public open space and on-site affordable housing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Taz. Sarah, thanks for attending this evening. Okay, good luck for the future. Right, moving swiftly on to item 7, which I think is quite an odd one, but Linda Ashcroft, if you'd like to present this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application has been brought to committee at the request of a ward councillor and seeks planning permission for the retention of a flat roof garden canopy. The structure projects for a maximum of 4.3 metres, that's this bit here, for a maximum width of 4.7 and will be set 0.375 metres off the western boundary. The structure has a flat roof at 2.5 metres high, which has been finished in a dark grey rubber material. The western elevation It's a bit slack. I can just see that there. Shows the conservatory of the adjoining property at number 17. The extension actually projects 1.1 metre beyond the rear facing windows of that conservatory. This is an image which shows the relationship of the structure to the adjacent conservatory. As you can see, the structure is predominantly open. The western elevation, what's my marker there, and a small section here of the rear elevation has been finished in horizontal timber cladding. There's a gate being put to this side adjacent the common boundary, which screens the existing boundary fence from view. This is a view otherwise that they'd see without that gate there. And this is the view of the extension from the adjoining semi, and then a view from inside the conservatory. So a total of 2 letters of objection have been received, but in addition, members of, there's been an update sheet detailing a late objection. So there's been 2 letters of objection, one on behalf and the second from the occupiers of the same property. The proposal meets with the 45-degree rule set out in the Residential Extensions SPD and is policy compliant, and as such is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Right, okay, thanks for your presentation, Linda. Right, I don't have any objectors to this application. Don't have any supporters to the application. We do, however, thankfully have the ward member, Councillor Jackie Elty, who wishes to speak on this application, and I welcome her comments. Don't forget, Jackie, Councillor Elty, 4 minutes maximum. I'm warning you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. So in December 2020, a blue canvas gazebo 3 metres by 3 metres was raised in the area outside the patio doors at the rear of Mr. and Mrs. Brown's property. This provided shelter and a means to enjoy their outside patio space under cover. Over time and due to weather damage, the gazebo became unsightly and a decision to remove it and replace it was made in March 2022. It was believed that the structure would reduce by redirection any noise from family gatherings, potentially impacting upon their neighbours. Originally, the structure was built to mirror the size of the neighbour's conservatory, both from a height and length perspective. In April 2022, during construction, their neighbour requested that the fence panels at the side of the structure between the 2 properties be removed to facilitate access for maintenance to the neighbour's conservatory. The panels had been in situ for over 30 years without replacement, so Mr. and Mrs. Brown complied with that request. The fence being in poor condition was unsightly, so to address this, the family extended their structure, creating a hinged joint at the end piece, providing a neat, tidy view from within their garden. Mr. and Mrs. Brown had not realised that planning permission was required because they hadn't considered the covered patio as a room or an extension. In November 2022, Mr. and Mrs. Brown received notification from the council that a complaint had been made, and following a request from a councillor, the plans would go to planning committee. The complaint was from their neighbour. The structure was measured and the family were advised that because it was attached to the house, it was classed as an extension and planning permission was required. An architect was appointed and drawings with planning permission were submitted to South Ribble Borough Council in January 2023. Mr. and Mrs. Brown have worked hard to achieve a minimal impact to their neighbour regarding construction work, which, though paused for a short period, caused some contention when work restarted. The family simply wish to enjoy the quiet space they have created, and it was never their intention to cause conflict with their neighbour. Thank you for listening to me.
You've got another 1 minute, 30 seconds, Councillor Alty, if you need it. I think it's absolutely wonderful when a ward member stands up and speaks in support of the residents. Thanks, Councillor Alty. Councillor Adams. And then Councillor Moon. And then Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Alty, for your words there. It's fairly straightforward for me, Chair. It's policy compliant. I think while there might be a couple of objectors, I think Councillor Alty's probably summed it up very well. So I'd like to propose approval. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Moon.
Chair, whilst it might be great for a ward councillor to come here and speak on behalf of residents, I genuinely don't know why this is a committee. I genuinely don't know why it's a committee. To me, this is not the best use of planning committee time. I don't think it should be at planning permission and get on with life. So I'm happy to support it, but I do not think it's fair that you should be in a position where you're attending a planning committee unnecessarily.
Is that a chastisement, Councillor Moon?
Yeah, I guess it is really, because I've sat in this committee for long enough to know that shouldn't be at this committee, but I'm happy to second the proposal if we're moving it forward. You should have had planning permission a long time ago, in my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Moon. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I was going to second it, but Councillor Moon's now seconded it. But it just goes to show how dedicated and committed Councillor Alty is to her residents. So well done, Councillor Alty. So I'm going to go with approval too. Thank you.
Right, do we have any other proposals on this item? Councillor Smith, have you got one?
Could think of one, Chair, if you really wanted me to, but I think Councillor Alty has been chastised enough this evening.
Okay, so with no other proposals, Councillor Adams has proposed approval, seconded by Councillor Moon. Let's go to the vote on this that shouldn't be here in the first place.
Thank you, Chair. So committee have decided to give retrospective planning permission in respect to the retention of a flat roof garden canopy at 316 Leyland, no, at 18 Stanleyford Close. Thank you.
You did get your address right then, didn't you, Taz?
In the end, I did.
You did, right, okay. All right, so that's approved. Okay, thank you. Thanks for attending this evening. Right, we have items 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and 13 are going to be heard as a job lot, if you will. But then we're doing 2 votes. Councillor Flannery, did you want to say something?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Taz, could you just advise on my position being on the town deal board, please? Thank you, Mary.
It's a matter for you, Councillor Flannery. If you feel comfortable. It doesn't sound like, from what you've told me, that it's a prejudicial interest, but it's entirely up to you. If you want to leave the meeting, you can do.
Better to be safe, Taz. Better to be safe.
I would advise that it's a personal matter, not prejudicial. And I if it was me personally, Councillor Flannery, I'd stay in the meeting.
Thank you, Chair, but thanks, Taz. I think I'll take your advice.
But we might need the numbers, Councillor Flannery. Right. Okay, Daniel, if you'd like to make your presentation, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the last 6 items on the agenda are all linked. So they're all relation to the town centre, Leyland Town Centre regeneration. So I'm going to present them all in one go. I'm going to start off with an overview of the scheme and then take each item in a little bit more detail and then go back again and pick up some issues. You've been sent a update sheet. I'm just going to summarise that towards the end of the presentation. I wouldn't necessarily be worried about too much about the number of sheets in that update sheet, just because of the number of applications we've got. The conditions have been repeated a number of times in there, and highways have said a number of issues repeated.
Daniel, if you can just Councillor Smith, if you want to come in quickly.
I will, Chair. Thank you. And I think I spoke to you briefly just as the meeting was starting, of whether this application or these applications should be withdrawn in light of, I think, the 14 or 15 or 16 pages that we've just received seconds before the meeting that we haven't had chance to look at. So I've no idea what they say, whether we should sit and listen to the application and have a full explanation of whatever these items are. I don't know. There's just not been the opportunity to look at it. So that's I'll take it as it comes, Chair. But I mean, if I would support withdrawal for the time being, unless somebody could convince me differently that the reports that we have received, which are obviously from statutory consultees, that we actually need to consider that in full. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, you're welcome, Councillor Smith. What I would suggest then is that we have, if everybody's happy, a 10-minute adjournment. That will give you time to read, because if you have a look at the actual additional reports that were put into your pigeonhole, you'll find that a lot of them are repeated because there's 6 different applications. So if you want a 10-minute adjournment, that's what we can do.
They weren't in the pigeonhole, Chair. They were on the desk in front of me.
Well, okay, they were on the table, but there you go. But if you'd like a 10-minute adjournment to read them, I'm quite happy to do that. Otherwise, Councillor Moon?
Yeah, I would agree with what Councillor Smith's saying. We've walked in tonight, papers on your desk, no opportunity to look at it because you've engaged in other applications. And if you're going to do the job properly, then you should have time to process this information. I think it's fair, really, isn't it?
Okay, well, as you'll see, they are all LCC highways.
But Chair, without the opportunity to adjourn, we can't see that. So I think 10 minutes is sensible.
You want more than 10 minutes?
No, I'm saying I think 10 minutes is sensible, to let us at least
so
see that for ourselves.
Okay, so let's adjourn them for 10 minutes if you wish. You can read them here or you can go to your committee, to your rooms. It's entirely up to yourselves if anybody wants to have a comfort break. So officers, if you'd like to go and get yourselves a coffee or a tea, we will adjourn for 10 minutes. It's 25 to 7. So we will reconvene at 6:45, quarter to 7, okay? Right, okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is now 7:15, so we are going to reconvene. Hope you've had sufficient time to read the additional inputs that you have been given. In my opinion, they should have been in your pigeonholes, not just on the table. And in the future, I will ensure that the officers do such a thing as put them in your pigeonholes so that when you arrive, you will have them to hand to read before we sit down. Okay, Daniel Power, if you would like to present items 8 through to 13, please, in one go. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the remaining items are all part of Leyland Town Centre regeneration. So as I said, I'm going to give a brief overview of the scheme and then each individual item in a little bit more detail, and then back to an overview of the scheme to cover some of the points and some of the points within the update sheet as well. So this slide shows the different elements of the whole scheme. So through the submission, each part is called a different name. So I've just highlighted that on the screen so you know what I'm talking about. Each one of these bubbles in effect represents a different application. So starting along the top, we have what's called Commercial A. So that's the building that you can see here. So at the ground floor, that will consist of 2 commercial units. And then at first and second, there will be 13 flats in total. Moving along, we've got what's called Base 2. Now, this is a multi-function building, which is going to have offices, businesses, a startup business, a cafe, a ground floor as well, and office space throughout. The residential part is called Quinn Street. Now, this consists of 2 and 3 story dwellings. So you've got 2 story here, 3 story here, and then this is a block of flats here. And there's also new parking proposed. That is partly relocating of the market car park, which is here. So we have the Market Hall, which again forms another application. So there's an extension and redevelopment proposed of this, so an extension on the northern side, a new entrance on the west. And again, I'll go into further detail about that application shortly. On the left-hand side, we've got Balfour Court. So this is an existing building that will have an extension, which is this element here and this element here, to have some commercial space looking onto a public square. There'll be residential flats to the rear and at first floor. The other element that's called Commercial B. So that will be the demolition of an existing building, which is 51 to 50A, and the construction of a 3-story building with commercial at the ground floor and flats at first and second. So this slide just shows the location of the development. So the large building that you've got here is the Heatings building. There's also a terrace of vacant properties there. All this will be demolished. You've got the existing market building here, Balfour Court on this side, 51 to 55, which is here, and that's the building that will be demolished. So going back to that previous slide, your car park building is largely where the Heatings building will be, and the residential is as well. So just to show some photographs of the site, as you can see on the left-hand side, we are at the top part of the Leyland Market car park. So you've got the Heatings building here, and you can just see the listed church as well. And the same on the picture on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, sorry. And you can just see the market building there. So this is where the Commercial A will be, which is sort of approximately where the cursor is now. And you'll have the base building in the background with the residential and the parking just to the left. So this is looking at partly the Heaton's Engineering building and the terrace of properties. So the terrace of properties is on the right-hand side. So the image on the right-hand side. The image on the left shows the church, the listed church. So these buildings, which is this picture on the right, these will all be demolished. Again, so some further images of the Heaton's building. So this is Quinn Street. So where the cursor is on the left-hand image, the road would continue up to the new properties with the car parking on the left and the dwellings on the right.
Daniel, when you're presenting, can you tell us which item on the agenda you're referring to?
I'm not up to that yet.
Okay.
When I get to the items, hopefully make a bit more sense. This is just give you some photos of that area.
So this is just an overview of the whole?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So this is the northern side. So what you can just see at the dip is where the brook is. So you can see the Heaton's Engineering building there. So agenda item 8 is what's known as base 2. So what we have on this image is the Leyland Market, which is here. There's public open space, which is the existing market car park. So there would be a road that would continue. At the moment, it stops at this position. And here you have the Heating's building. That will be demolished and it would create a car park here with the base 2 building here. So this is partly within the existing market car park and partly would be following the demolition of the Heaton's building. This shows some elevations of the proposed building. So the top one is the northern elevation with the bottom one, the southern elevation. So your northern elevation is along here and the southern one would be here. These are east and west, so that west and east. So the top diagram was elevation of the building here. So this would be looking on to the main public square. This slide shows the floor plans of the building. So the one on the left-hand side is the ground floor. So that's the commercial element. So that's the office element with the coffee shop as well. And then it's the subdivision of the building internally with the different office spaces, making it a flexible use. So while the building is 3-story, you can see the section here, which drops down to single-story. So the single-story element is along here, which is the element which is closer to these 3-story townhouses here. So the 3-story element is closer to the main square, the new public square, with that single-story element to the west. This is shows some renders of the building. So this would be what's called base 2. So this is within the proposed square. So what you can see on the right-hand side is the market building. So that's the existing building, but has an extensions on it. This element is the extensions of the market. And then this is the base 2 building. And the building on the left-hand side is Commercial A, which I'll come on to next. Commercial A. So Commercial A is now in what is the car park for Leyland Market. So this is an existing car park which is near to the surgery. This slide shows proposed elevations. So the top is a north elevation, so that looks onto the dwellings on this northern side. You can see that this has a single-story element which faces closer to those dwellings, with the bottom elevation is a southern elevation which looks into the square. So your southern elevation is along here, which looks into the new public square, And your northern elevation with that drop single story element runs along here. And again, east and west elevation showing the single story element, which is on that northern side of the road. This slide shows the proposed floor plan. So the bottom one is the ground floor, which shows the subdivision into 2 commercial units. The first and second floor are mirror each other, so that's why there's only one, but that's where your apartments are. And again, this shows a proposed render of the building. So the main one is your commercial A. On the right-hand side was the base 2 that we spoke about before, and this is the new public square. You can see there's a link through just about where my cursor is that takes you linking through to the car park. Yeah, so your commercial A building, there was your base 2 building, and that was that link through to the main car park, the new proposed car park. So item 10 is what is known as Quinn Street. So this is the dwellings. So there are 2-story dwellings along here and 3-story dwellings on this side with proposed block of flats here. This slide shows the 3-story townhouses. So that are these along here. And this slide shows the proposed 2-story dwellings, which was to the northern part of the site. This is the proposed block of flats, which was to here. Again, just some renders to give you an idea of the scale and design of the proposal. These are the 3-story townhouses, the apartments, and the 2-story townhouses. So the left-hand side of that image is where the proposed new car parking area will be. Item 11 is for the proposed Leyland Market. So this involves extensions and alterations to the existing building and also the creation again of the public open space to the front. So on the left hand side just shows you an image of the existing market. As part of this application, it would stop the highway access here where the cursor is. So this parking area will be removed. Again, you have the extension to Balfour Court that I'll come on shortly, but that is a public open space as well. So it opens up the pedestrian area for this element. As you can see, the existing pedestrian access for the market, which is a shared space with car parking access to Balfour Court. There would remain some highway access up until that point for highway access for access for the properties along here, but it would open up this area as a public open space and greater access for Leyland Market. Again, so this is looking at the existing Leyland Market car park, which you can see the Heaton buildings in the rear. The elevation that faces to the car park at the moment, this is where the alterations are going to be. There's an extension on here. And further images showing the relationship between Balfour Court and Leyland Market. And on the right hand side again shows you that pedestrian sort of pinch point between the two buildings and the car access. So this shows the proposed elevations. So this elevation here is the elevation that would face onto the car park. So that is what's going to have the single story extension to it with commercial units into it, and a new access feature to the building. So this is on the western side that faced Balfour Court, which is where that pinch point of the restriction is at the moment. Just showing some floor plans of the proposal. So this on the right hand side shows the proposed floor plans. This is where the extension is to the building along this side, then with the new entrance as well. So again, this just shows some renders of what's proposed. So where the cursor is that new square that's going to be created between Commercial A, Base 2 and the Market Building. So these new units will look onto that open space. On the right hand side of the image, you can just see the new entrance to Leyland Market. So the main high street is just down there on the right hand side where the cursor is. So this is what you would currently drive through here to get to the park into Balfour Court, but that will be removed. Again, looking at elevation, an image of that elevation again. And just a render of internals of the building. Item 12 relates to Balfour Court. So this is an existing building that is proposed to have extensions to the south and east, which is the inner L of the building, which would then look onto a new public open space following the removal of the car parking for the building. So again, you have the relationship between the Leyland Market and then linking through to that larger public open space with the other commercial buildings. Just some images of the existing building. This is what will be the new public open space. So some of these elements of the existing building or external staircases will be removed, and there will be a flat roof extension to the front of the building. Again, so the image on the left-hand side is the access to the car park. This will become new public open space with just, so the image on the left-hand side where you can see my cursor, that will be where Commercial A will be in that greater, larger open space. And the image on the right-hand side shows the access to the rear of the building. This shows the proposed floor plans. The one on the left-hand side is the ground floor. So you can see the individual commercial units following the extension to the front, with residential to the rear. And at first floor, you can see the further flats. So the flats would have their own access, which is here. So these proposals show the two main elevations that are going to have the change to them. So this shows the flat roof extensions to the front of the building, which you can probably see better off these renders. So these show your extensions to the front of the building, which will have your commercial units and then residential above. The building on the left-hand side is for commercial and residential waste storage. The last item is item 13, which is Commercial B. So this will result in the demolition of the existing building, which is 51 to 55, and the construction of a new 3-storey building. So this shows the existing building in relation to the listed church next door. And again, the image is the same. It shows the listed church and the application property. So again, just some further images showing the building to be demolished, which would include this building here, just highlighted on the cursor on the image on the right-hand side. This slide shows the proposed elevation. The main street elevation will be this one on the left-hand side. So you can see the commercial units on the bottom with the residential above. So the building is stepped, which you can see on the bottom left image. So it builds up the mass within the site and brings that mass further back. In comparison to the existing building on the site, it actually moves the developments further within the site, giving you better views of the listed church from along the high street. So this plan shows your commercial on the ground floor with your flats at first and second floor, a total of 4 flats. and again an image that can show you that the setback compared to the existing, which provides some open space to the front, and then your flats at first and second, again showing that sort of step back in the increase of the mass of the building. So in terms of the recommendations, for items 8, 9 and 10, the recommendation is to delegate to the head of planning. We are waiting for consultation to be carried out with the Environment Agency, because the application site is within 10 metres of a main river, which the Bannister Brook along the northern part of the site is. We have to carry out a consultation following the receive a flood risk assessment with the Environment Agency. We've had discussions with the Environment Agency, and the applicant has, during the consideration of the application, they're in the process of applying for permits as well to carry out works within there. But because it's within that 10 metres, we have to carry out a consultation. The flood risk assessment has almost been completed. It's not within a flood risk zone. It is to ensure that what works are carried out during the process and the finished proposal allow access to maintenance of the brook. Ultimately, that there will be an improvement because there will be a removal of the Heaton's building from that site. So it is ultimately a technical exercise following the submission of an FRA to ensure that the Environment Agency are satisfied with that. So that's the reason for those 3 applications being delegated. The other 3 are recommendations of approval. In terms of the update sheet that was sent around, during the consideration of the application, the applicant, agent and myself have had a number of meetings with the Highway Authority. Following their original comments, further information was provided, and following another meeting, further information was provided then. When the report was written, we hadn't received their final comments. So the update sheet is their most up-to-date comments. The 5 of those comments, while they raise some concerns, they have no objections. Their concerns largely relate to technical details of how pavements will be laid out in terms of what they call tactile points. So a tactile point is when you come to a junction, you see those knobbly bits at the junction. They want further detail and clarification of size, location, textures. At this point in the planning application, we have enough to be satisfied to recommend approval. Those details may change anyway when it comes to a landscaping scheme or when the applicant or agent applies under highway legislation to adopt the highway. So at this stage, a condition for a landscaping condition involving hard and soft landscaping is suffice to control that. Other elements they've raised is a suggestion for a condition that the car park that you can see highlighted here is provided prior to the opening of the market hall. We haven't recommended that condition be imposed. There's a number of reasons for that. The first being that it would delay the opening of the market, which would have an impact on the town centre, would have an impact on the users of that market. This site, which currently has the car park on, has half of or a large section of the Heating's building on there. So there will be the demolition of that building that would have to be carried out. It is likely that given the previous use of that site, there's also contamination issues involved. And it is the intention of the applicant to use this area for storage of vehicles, for parking of contractors, for an office for contractors. So with the different elements of the scheme, if that condition would be imposed, there's a question of where those materials and vehicles will be stored. But there's also the delay in providing the market hall and the other commercial and the other elements of the scheme. So that's why that condition hasn't been recommended. There is one application that Harris Authority still have an objection to, and that relates to Quinn Street. So Quinn Street relates to the residential part, the dwellings part of the application. So this part of the proposal has been amended. What was originally proposed here was a one-way street. So there was proposed originally to be one parking space to the front of each of the properties. And because of that, the road was proposed to be narrowed to create a one-way street going down, in fact. Highways Authority have concerns with the capacity and traffic that will be pushed to other streets because of that. So the scheme was amended to remove the parking to the front of each of the property. So therefore the road could be wider enough to have two-way traffic. We believe that overcomes the objection that Highways had, as they stipulated within their comments that returning this road to a two-way street would overcome that. We haven't received formal confirmation of that, and that is also why this application would also be delegated to the head of planning. So if I can just remind members of what the recommendation would be. So item 8, 9 and 10 will be delegated to Head of Planning. Recommendation for item 11, 12 and 13 is recommendation of approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Daniel, thanks for your very detailed report. Memory serves me correctly, I've seen a lot of those drawings before at the public consultation. I think you will have done as well, Councillor Smith. One time I couldn't get in because it was oversubscribed, and the second time was here at the Civic Centre. So, yeah, I've seen quite a few of those drawings before. Right, Councillor Matthew Tomlinson. Oh, no, yeah, okay, well, we can have the agent first, Louise Hunter, if you'd like to come and give us your representation for 4 minutes, if you will. So if you press the speak button. Yeah, before you start, Dan, you do have 4 minutes on each application if you wish, so you have up to 24 minutes.
If I may, I've brought them on a memory stick if that's helpful.
Louise, are you going to be making representations as a whole or on each application?
Just to make use of the time while we sort the slides out, the way I thought to do this was to give you really an overview of how we'd presented the schemes at public consultation and how we've responded in terms of the design to the context and heritage of the town centre. And then through our visualisations, take you on a bit of a walk through the scheme and really just pick out key points. I thought that would be perhaps most useful.
Okay, we'll let Daniel get his stuff together. Does there seem to be a problem, gents? Yeah, okay. The images of the walkthrough. So if you want to, do you want to start talking through the consultation process or? Oh, here we go.
Maybe see it full screen, we'll be able to see all of the images. Well, to begin, so in August 2021, the current design team were appointed by South Ribble Borough Council to take forward the strategic projects and vision, which was described in the town investment plan. And what we've seen tonight and what I'll take you through is a culmination of that, along with the consultations that we've carried out. So just to read back, I suppose, the underpinning vision of the project at Former Leyland Town Deal is that Leyland should become a digitally connected, carbon neutral town where local enterprises thrive, skilled residents have good jobs, and the community feels well connected to a revitalised town centre, which has a distinct Leyland character. So the first slide. When we were appointed, we're local as a team, many of us, to this town, and some grew up here. So the first slide really was just to read back what we read back to residents and to the council ourselves, was recognising the qualities of town centre, where it was successful, and how we've picked that up and taken that forward in our design. So the photographs we show are of attractive residential streets right in the town centre. We recognise well-kept front gardens, green space right off Huff Lane, walkable housing, and there's obviously pride in that housing. Built fabric, predominantly brick, and some examples of attractive detailing in the town centre. Some buildings of scale, typically 3-storey, an example there of the former co-op building, and also former industrial buildings, and they sit side by side with small scale residential, so there's that contrast of scale right in the town centre. And then where it's successful, the town centre is dense and there's a sense of vitality, so buildings and activities in close proximity with each other. And then we took a look back as well. The image on the left is very familiar to everybody in the town. It's outside the market. And on the left there, what was a real clue to us about Northcote Street, where we were starting our work, was that it wasn't a street with no end to it. We're trying to create a new heart to the town, which is one street back from the main shopping street. And what you see on the left there is a building at the end of that street. So we needed things to draw you into the site, which is why Commercial A, when we come to it, actually steps across in the position of where you see the Leyland Motors sign there. And on the right, a really old, slightly fuzzy image, but of Heaton's building now gone, which is behind the church, and just bringing home that sort of real density in the town centre and a mix of uses side by side. We particularly picked up on the Heaton's building and the form of the gables, which march north-south, which we've picked up in our residential proposal. So I think it's useful just to have an overview before we sort of walk through the buildings. To say that we're one street back, we're trying to use every opportunity to build vitality. So there's every sort of activity happening in that plan. So we've got the market, retail of different scales, and then the base 2 building, which is about building skills in Leyland and giving people opportunities, incidental opportunities to build businesses and really linking it. We even saw the market being a great test bed. If you've got a business idea, you can do that at quite low risk. And then further north, the car park, and then Quinn Street building residential density in the town centre. Importantly on that as well, we saw Quinn Street as a real opportunity to build a north-south link connecting with a bridge over Bannister Brook through green space right through to Golden Hill, which again gives a walkable, safe pedestrian route and brings people down into the new heart of the town centre. There we go. So the next slides would be a walkthrough from Hough Lane through the applications, and we'll pick up some of the points. Balfour Court is proposed to be revitalised with a new frontage, and I think it's important to point out that the retail frontages that we're proposing for all of the projects tie together. They're not all the same, the scale slightly varies, but the details pick up and there's a consistency of detailing across the schemes. We've also been careful with all the retailing to provide clear positioning for signage to control that signage and make it smart and consistent throughout. The other thing to say about Balfour Court is that it's reusing an existing building, which is really meeting some of the sustainability aspirations of the project and providing town centre living. And Balfour Court Square, we're gone. So Balfour Court Square is just off the high street, and it becomes a sort of frontage not only for Balfour Court itself but for the market. And we've opened up the market, particularly here, so that you can see in and see out. The market currently is very closed, so we wanted to open that to the square and see that as being a sort of introduction to our 2 squares. It's a sort of composition, and we see events being able to take place in that, maybe, you know, relating to the market or those retail units. Go on. And coming out of that square into our larger square is the market hall. The market itself has been really pivotal in the design scheme. It's the last remaining of the Northworks buildings, and it has some real character internally and externally. It's a brick building, double pitches. And what we've done with the extension is a slightly more industrial feel to the retail extension, and also bringing more light to the interior. We've got north lights, which again recall the sort of historic industrial character of that area. In the interior, again, we're sort of playing up the industrial heritage and the existing features of the building, retaining timber trusses, new roof, retaining the brick finish internally. We aim to remove some of the paint and see some of the original brick. And then the crane rail that is there in the market hall, which we'll keep as well. I think the other thing just to mention about the market is that we have carried out quite a lot of consultation with the existing traders and market manager, and the arrangement of the stalls and the way we'll be able to open and close the market with the new units opening onto the square and dividing the interior will enable it to be much more flexible. So enabling traders to carry on trading in the way that they do now, but also opening the market up for perhaps more evening use. We've seen locally that markets can be valuable catalysts to town centre economic development. And then with the market now at our back, we come into the larger of the two squares, and we've got 2 3-storey buildings, the scale reflecting larger buildings in the town centre. And to the north, Commercial A has deliberately south-facing openings, so we've got potentially larger units for retail and restaurants that open out to the south. And base 2 also brick, following the same pattern. We've got quite a lot of depth of modelling on the facades so that these buildings have a real robust character to them. Base 2 is slightly different. It's a building with 3 facades. It's a bit of a dynamic form with the two routes coming into the square. And the scale of that is broken down, stepping down to the market with the dark grey clad element at the 2nd storey level. And then we move further northeast onto Quinn Street, and coming back to that sort of heritage of the Heaton's building and the pitch roofs north-south. So we've got south-facing pitches with solar photovoltaic panels, and then recalling the sort of successful residential development in the town centre. We've got small front gardens, which, people can have that little bit of protection from being right on the street. And then landscaping, bringing trees and green in the street as well. And then finally, looking back in the opposite direction, we've got the car park on our right, which is landscaped and does benefit from having the sort of natural surveillance of the residential properties, and it being actually formed as a route from the north to the south, and the church in the south too. We did recognise that where the market car park was at the moment in an evening, it's very much one street back and unseen. So, this is a seen car park on a route. Thank you.
Okay, Louise, thank you very much for your presentation. Sorry for your wait with the technical itch. Must do better next time, Daniel. All right, Councillor Matthew Tomlinson. Taz is ready with the time.
I don't think I'll take up 4 minutes for each application, Chairman. I'm really pleased to come before the committee to tell you how excited I am by this. It's been a long time coming. I think you said yourself you recognised some of those photographs, and we have consulted to death really on this, which perhaps explains why when we've got one of the most exciting planning applications, certainly for the town of Leyland, there is literally no one here from the public to air their views, because most people have had the chance to air their views 2 or maybe even 3 times, and most people will recognise these pictures as ones that they've seen before. I think it sits together well, the different applications. I'm a little bit disappointed, if I'm honest, that we're asking to delegate some of them, because I would like us to get over the line eventually, but that is where we are. The the point about the market not opening until the car park is ready, I would urge you not to take that decision, because we are going to move the market people out for a while, and the sooner we can get them back in the market, the better. We don't want to disrupt their trade any more than is absolutely necessary. But I think it's the culmination of what is it, 3 years now since the town deal, over 3 years since the town deal was announced, and for several different reasons, it's taken longer than I'm sure we all would have hoped. But I'm hoping you approve the ones that you can. Let's delegate the ones that we can't, and hope that our statutory consultees, let's urge them to be. They won't be quick. I can't use the word quick because they just won't. But let's urge them to get the work done as soon as is possible. And I'll leave it to your good selves. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Councillor Tomlinson. I usually call it Matthew, but... Right, okay, before I bring the application into committee, can I ask Taz to clarify how we are going to vote on this very complicated application?
Okay, so I suggest we take a vote on items 8, 9 and 10 together, and then a separate one for items 11, 12 and 13. So I'd suggest one proposal for items 8, 9 and 10. So the recommendation is obviously delegation to the head of planning in consultation with the chair or vice chair of planning. And then the other proposal will be for items 11, 12 and 13. And that will be approved with conditions except for the condition 3 on the addendum sheet in respect of item 11. Now, once I've heard the debate, I might suggest something different. Over to you.
You never cease to amaze me, Taz. Right, okay, let's open this up into committee. Councillor Smith.
Just one thing to be clear with the recommendation for 8, 9 and 10, Chair. Recommendations to delegate to the Director of Planning and Development. Is the only decision that the Director of Planning and Development going to make based on the environmental impact? The flood risk assessment that we're waiting for, is it just that bit that the decision is going to be made? Are we making as a committee a decision on the rest of it pending that report?
Just give us 1 second, Councillor Smith.
Perhaps it could be in consultation with Councillor Phil Smith.
Right, okay, Taz will come in on that one, Councillor Smith.
So the actual decision being made tonight in respect of items 8, 9 and 10 is delegation for that decision to approve, subject to receiving the response from the EA and potentially the highways as well. Now, if we find that there is an objection from EA and highways, I would recommend that it comes back to committee to make the final decision.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Smith?
I'm just wondering whether we can make it a bit simpler than that, Chair. I think most of us are probably in favour of most of it, to be quite honest. I mean, that there are bits of issues, I think, that we'll discuss during the debate, but that's which is why I want just to get this bit clear to start with. I mean, it would be good for the committee to make the decision. and there's no reason we couldn't make that decision today, whichever way the decision is, and delegate decision the flood risk assessment, which I'm sure is a significant document, but nevertheless, it's going to be fairly straightforward, I would have think, to the Director of Planning. I mean, I'm not sure whether that flood risk assessment needs to come back, but I don't see there's a reason that we couldn't actually make a decision on this application this evening, pending that decision coming in. So it's either a pass or a fail or whatever it might be, depending on what the study flood risk assessment says.
Kaz, would you like to respond?
Yes, please. So we're actually awaiting a statutory consultation response, which we are fully aware that is going to come in after we submit the flood risk assessment. So no, the answer is no, the committee can't make the decision. And obviously I would suggest that it is delegated to the director. Sorry, not the director, the head of planning, because the director is actually leaving, the interim director is leaving. So it'd be head of planning consultation with chair and vice chair. This is not a situation like Avondale Drive that we had earlier on in the evening, if you recall, because that was actually a late objection, which committee weren't aware was going to potentially come in. So, like I've said before, I think I would suggest that it is delegated. Well, obviously, it's up to you as a committee, but that's the officer's recommendation, and I think that's probably the right thing to do.
All right, thanks for that, Saz. Councillor Mrs Green and then Councillor Will Adams.
Sorry, Chair, just I'm trying to be helpful. So
yeah, that's fine, Councillor Smith. Thanks for being helpful. Councillor Mrs Green and then Councillor Will Adams.
Yeah, I'm just a bit confused about a few points that's come on this supplement, actually. There's a steady stream through every item on this supplement from county highways, which is strange for them, I know. But they've obviously woken up. But there's a stream running through every item, as I can see, as quick as time as we had to look at it. That they're concerned about the car parking being there before it's been removed, if you know what I mean. The new car parking space has been put there as if they're really concerned about the car parking spaces for residents, that we don't have to wait till everything's finished before the car park's there. They're concerned about the car park being retained as much as possible until the new car parking's done. I'm confused about where exactly is the car park going and how much capacity is it?
Councillor Green, we're doing 8, 9 and 10 at the moment. I think you're on number 11, the Leyland Market.
Well, there's like a steady stream to all of them, really. It's mentioned to all of them about car parking and what have you.
Okay, yeah, go on, carry on.
If I could just put the queries too, and then the officers can perhaps come back, all right. I'm a bit concerned about the car park and where it actually is, what sort of capacity and size it is compared with the car park we have now behind the market. And I'm also concerned about, Councillor Tomlinson rightly said, they want to get the market traders in as quick as possible so they're not losing trade. How long, have we any idea how long from the developer that they're going to need to be rehoused and they're not going to be in-house and working? Because obviously I'm concerned for the market traders losing the money. They haven't got a lot of money at the moment. A lot of them have second jobs to supplement what they're making in the market now. So I'm just concerned as how long are they sort of being removed from the old market before they can be moved into the new market, if they so wish to go there. And is there not somewhere we could sort of temporarily house them in Leyland, in that interim period of where they're not in one market and they're going to another one? I'm trying to lessen the impact really on the market traders' income and business, what have you. Thank you.
Okay, Daniel, can you answer any of those queries from Councillor Mrs Green?
Yes, Chair. Let me just bring up the PowerPoint.
If you want to start on the car parking, you can do, or the reciting of the market stall holders. Either or.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So in relation to the car park, the proposed car park will be located on the top left of the screen here. So you can see it says base 2. So it's just to the right. So these blue rectangles are all car parking spaces. From memory, I think there's about 50 car parking spaces in total. That consists of disabled electric charging points as well. There's also a cycle storage, which is, I don't know if you can see my cursor, which is approximately there. So just at the entrance to the car park on the left-hand side, there's some cycle parking as well. So that's the proposed car parking for, well, it'll replace the market car parking.
How does that compare in spaces with the existing car park we've got now at the market? Bearing in mind your electric plug-ins will only be for people using electric plug-ins, so they tend to, at the moment anyway, probably not in the future, but at the moment, to be sort of in the way, not redundant, but stood there unless you've got electric, or you can't use those spaces. So those spaces won't be used by the regular car drivers at the moment. So how does it compare with the market amount of spaces that we've got on the market car park now, approximately, just so we can visualise?
I'm looking at the agent. Am I correct? It was broadly similar.
Yeah, Louise, can you do me a favour? Can you come and speak into the microphone? Because I cannot hear a word you're saying. Thank you.
Just on the car parking, the car park proposed represents a reduction in spaces, and with each application was submitted the transport statements that include a study that was carried out on the usage of existing car parks. I think Churchill Way, Eckroyd Street and at King Street, and capacity for those spaces and availability and walking distance for each of them. And that was where the reduction was developed from in car parking spaces.
Okay, so there's going to be a slight reduction in the size of the car park.
Reduction, yeah.
We're meant to be going carbon neutral, folks, aren't we? So, yeah, okay. Thank you. Did you want to come back, Daniel?
Yeah, just Chair. On other points that also Councillor Green raised, in terms of justification for the not imposing the highways condition, part of the justification also put forward was that there is an underuse of other car parks within the area. So that car park will be provided as part of the development. What the applicant and agent don't want to have is a condition requiring that to be provided prior to the market being open. There's a number of elements to the scheme. And like I said in my presentation, this area will also form part of storage for materials and cabins as well. So that allows that to be located and not cause disturbance elsewhere. There is also contamination on the site as well, given the previous use. So it will be a length of time for that to be provided, which is why we're not suggesting that condition is imposed.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Louise, have you any idea how long the market will be closed?
Yeah, just to explain, the current construction programme placed the market first in as part of the development sequence. The programme is approximately 12 months, and we've been looking at options for the relocation of the traders in the town centre during that period, so they wouldn't be ceasing to trade in that 12-month period. The current plan is that we look for somewhere, a temporary market for them in the best place.
Okay, thanks very much for your help, Louise. Thank you. Daniel, you want to come back in again as well?
Sorry, Chair, yes. And just in terms of the reduction in spaces in comparison to the existing market car parking, the Highway Authority had no objections on that point. that they were happy with the information that provided based on the proposed uses for each building. Also, cycle parking in terms of communal cycle parking, which is within the new open space. There's cycle parking in there as well, and within the car parking, and each residential use and each commercial use also has internal cycle parking. So in terms of vehicle parking, cycle parking, Harry's had no objection on those matters.
Okay, thanks for that, Daniel. Oh, okay, Councillor Mrs. Green.
Not really. I mean, you're mentioning all the other car parks, but let's be honest, that car park behind the market and possibly the one on Churchill Way are the two most used. People will not park on King Street and walk down from King Street all that way, especially if they're elderly, to go down to that area. You need a central car park a bit nearer, I'm afraid. I'm not happy with the amount of car parking it's saying.
Yeah, I mean, you'd need to have some evidence to back up your statement there, Councillor Mrs. Green, but okay, right, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to lump all these into one, and I hope that's okay. Well, certainly my comments will anyway. We can vote on the technicalities. Thank you, Dan. I think that was a great presentation. As someone who isn't from Leyland or spent too much time in Leyland, it was very useful for me to see that. And also to Louise as well for your comments. That really helped me in terms of making my decision this evening. I think, Leyland's got a very proud industrial history, hasn't it? And I think I'm surprised. I have seen some of the designs before, but I'm surprised how much that's been taken into account in terms of the whole scheme. And I think that's really to be commended, to be honest. And I think it's aesthetically, it looks really good. I think the other thing is in terms of town centres, they've kind of been decimated over the last 10, 15 years in terms of, boarded up shops or shops vacant or premises just left to ruin, basically. And I think a scheme like this really shows the future of town centres and what they should be like. Employment opportunities, housing, open spaces, and, in terms of providing there's good transport links, also promoting cyclists and also pedestrians as well. So in terms of the parking element of it, I don't share the same concerns as has already been mentioned. I think it's important we do have parking available, obviously, but I think there needs to be a bigger push here in relation to public transport and also cycling and pedestrian use as well. I think there's, as already been said, there's been extensive consultation already carried out. This is, I think, a scheme that I think the vast majority, or certainly 99% of people within the whole borough would support, and I'm hoping also they will do on the council. I think there will be inevitable disruption, that is a given, but I think in terms of the end product of what's going to actually happen here, I think this is going to really transform Leyland and South Ribble, and I think it will actually bring a lot of people outside of South Ribble into South Ribble and into Leyland, and that should be, and I think everyone involved in this should be commended with that because of the size and the quality of the project. So I will propose approval for the first three, if that's how we're doing it. And I'm very happy to do that and thank everyone who has done so much work to this point. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that, Councillor Adams. Thanks very much. Looking around for hands. Anybody else?
Through Chair, sorry.
Yes.
Just interrupt.
This is item 10. Yes, you can interrupt us.
Sorry. Just in terms of, so it's for the officer recommendation.
Correct, yes.
I thought that anyway. Okay. Councillor Lomax.
Just to say, I will second that proposal. I think it is a very good proposal. Work does mess up a little bit as time goes on. It gets better. And I think this is an an excellent exercise for Leyland, who gets everything in South Ribble. But it is a well worth exercise, and I think it will breathe new life into Leyland. It might even take away some business from the strip in Penwitham.
Councillor Moon.
Thanks, Chair. Well, I would say I did grow up in Leyland. Spent all of my childhood as part of Leyland United Reformed Church. So spent all my time in what are now the boarded up houses opposite the church. Had a great time playing in those. Don't tell the parents. I am obviously really pleased to see this come forward. I like the sensitivity to the heritage, the industrial heritage. It is massive, isn't it? It's what we're known for. I don't know if any other Leylander goes on holiday, but every time there's a Leyland bus or a truck, you've got to have a picture, haven't you? You've got to be dead excited. I remember being in Canada, Niagara Falls, Leyland bus. I'm like, woohoo! So we do get quite excited about it, to be fair. I have a couple of frustrations with the process, and I'm going to just say this as a planning committee member. I do find it a little bit when applications come and they feel like we've still this to wait for and this to wait for and that to wait for, and you think we're being asked to delegate applications. And I kind of get why in the process of wanting to get on with these things, but as a planning committee member, I do get a bit frustrated with that, especially like Counties one on Quinn Street and the one-way, two-way. And I know what you're saying, you've taken it back to what they want, so hopefully they'll be happy. But I would personally just have preferred to have been getting this application when it felt a bit more done, a bit more like we were there with these consultees. But that's just my bugbear. I do share some of Councillor Green's concerns on parking. Don't shoot me, Councillor Tomlinson. But my biggest, I'll accept what you're saying if the assessments have been done and blah de blah. It is what it is. I just wanted to ask about disabled parking because that does bother me slightly. Love the concept of the square and all of that. But if I think about, I go into Leyland with a disabled person and we park at the back of the market and it's very doable because we're right there and we're in and it's doable compared to potentially now Balfour Court's gone, the market's gone, I'm on King Street or I'm down the back of Heaton's. I just wonder what was the thinking, I guess. I just want to understand that if you're a disabled person, and I know what you say about transport links and all that, but the reality is, sadly, we don't have the bus access. You don't, if you're disabled, you're going to potentially struggle with the bus access. You're not necessarily going to be cycling in. I think we do have to think about different people with different mobilities and love the changing places being in there. That's fabulous. Want to see more of that. I have a big thing about toilets. I don't think we have enough toilets in South Ribble, so I'll just make that point now. So seeing a change in place was great. What about those people with reduced mobility? Are they going to have the same access and enjoyment of this as everybody else?
Yeah, Louise, if you could just let us know on the new car park at the market, how many disabled spots we'll have, please.
Chair, can I just add to that? It's not just that for me, because that's a lot further away than Balfour Court and the back of the market. So it's more than that for me. It's mobility. How do they enjoy this scheme the same as other people?
So in the car park, we're providing disabled spaces or accessible spaces correctly at the ratio as required by LCC Highways. So in a 50 space car park, we have got 5 spaces. What's not been discussed tonight in detail at all has been the wider scheme of public realm works, which are not obviously within this boundary. They'll be subject to the highways agreements. But the highways proposals are a reduction in car parking on street, but an increase in accessible bays on Huff Lane itself. So that's in the wider public realm. And we do have some accessible bays for, particularly for Balfour Court, where we've got ground floor apartments proposed, and they would be within the Balfour Court car park as is now. Okay.
Councillor Moon.
Yeah, thank you. Just through you, Chair. That's great. I was going to say is if there was any way we could stop general people parking on Huff Lane and make that more accessible, would solve the problem. So that's I'm pleased with that. Yeah, in the main, aside my frustrations of the process, really exciting. I'm still in the camp of I wish we could have the car park before, but I accept they're going to use it almost as a yard, aren't they? They're going to use it as their construction yard, really, by the sounds of it. And if we do go against that and put a condition in, we're making the whole thing really difficult, really, really difficult, and potentially spreading the problem elsewhere. So I think, yeah, I'm all right with it, Chair. I'm gonna go for it. I'll vote for all of it.
Right, one last time, Councillor Mrs Green, and then we're going to take any last proposals and then go to the vote on 8, 9 and 10. I've got Councillor Mrs Green, Taz. Okay?
Yeah. Councillor Moon raised an excellent point that I'm always drumming about. You know what I'm going to say? Public toilets. We need public toilets there, wherever, on Huff Lane there, not far from this development. And it's no use saying we've got a cafe in there and the market will have a cafe. That's fine. But when those are closed, there's no public toilets. And we need public toilets, especially those that are self-cleaning. You know, that you can get in some places where you go in and they self-clean and there's no hassle with them at all. If we can ask the developer to consider all that sort of thing. Obviously, disabled access in those toilets as well. We've got an ageing population. We've got to think about people parking and going for it's their life. You know, we keep talking about dementia and everything. It's a lot of people's highlight of the week to go into Leyland on a market day, go around the market, go around the shops, go and have a cup of coffee and then trail home and meet the friends and what have you. And I think we need to retain that. And I'm concerned about retaining that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mrs Green. Right, Councillor Smith, one last time and then that's it.
Last time. Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm supportive of the Leyland. Can you hear me, Chair? Yeah, I'm supportive, obviously, of the Leyland regeneration. I'm very familiar with the site itself. I'm very familiar with that part of Leyland. I don't come from Leyland, but nevertheless, I am very familiar with it. I have contributed to the public consultations on 2 or 3 occasions, and I still have a difficulty with the parking. I have to say, I've mentioned it each time, so I'm being fairly consistent with what I have to say. I do like the rest of the developments. I have to say that the developments that are going on, I think they will add a great deal to the centre of Leyland. There's been talk about sort of shop fronts close and shops close. There are no shops closed in Leyland. I think there's one at the moment. I went down there today just to have a look and have a count up. Leyland, from a shopping point of view and a support from local residents that support the local community in Leyland, is really good. It's always been really good. All the studies we've gone on retail development and retail in various different areas of the borough, Bamber Bridge always comes out first, but Leyland is very, very close behind it. It's really, really good and really supportive of the local community. So it's not a real problem. I like to see the development, but I would like to see the full detail of the public realm, because that is what people want. That is what they voted for during the consultation period. They want to see public realm, and that is, as far as I can see, that's the bit that makes the whole difference to it. But I think it is an exciting project, Chair. It's a very big project. It will be messy. It will be disruptive for lots and lots of people. But you know, there'll be a bit of pain, but there'll be a lot of gain after it. So I think, I think we should just get on with it as soon as we can, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Right, okay. Well, we've had a proposal for approval from Councillor Adams, which was seconded by Councillor Lomax. I don't have any other proposals, I don't think. Just before we go to the vote, however, Louise could you or Daniel come back on a valid point, in my opinion, raised by Councillor Mrs Green and Councillor Moon about public toilets on this scheme? I think the agent would be better off answering the question on that, because Daniel's looking a bit perplexed. Okay, thank you.
We are replicating the provision within the market. Currently, there is no change in places toilet in Leyland, and we took the decision following consultation to add that to the Balfour Court development. So that would be available with a radar key.
That, right, okay. So as I said, we're going to go to the vote for 8, 9 and 10 collectively. It's for approval, which was proposed by Councillor Adams and seconded by Councillor Lomax. So if we can go to the electronic vote on those 3 items, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
So members have decided to delegate authority to the head of planning in consultation with the chair or vice chair of planning committee in respect of items 8, 9 and 10. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Taz. Can we now move on to items 11, 12 and 13? Councillor Will Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't think I need to add too many more comments. I would have voted for them all in one if I could, but I'm quite happy to propose approval for these 3 items, and I urge members also to approve it and not put the brakes on this any more than we need to. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Just 1 second, Taz. Can I bring Councillor Lomax in, or do you have to go first? Yes, you can go first. Go on then. Ladies before gentlemen, okay.
Through you, Chair, just for clarification for my purposes, before we actually go for the vote in terms of this proposal that you've actually suggested, Councillor Will Adams, I did sort of suggest that we, no, in respect of item 11, there was the exception of condition 3 to the addendum sheet. So is that part of your proposal as well?
Yes.
Councillor Lomax.
Very short and sweet, I second it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lomax. Are there any other proposals? Are you quite happy with what's going on, Taz? Yeah. Okay, so this is for approval with conditions on item 11. If we can go to the electronic vote on this one, please.
Thank you, Chair. So members have decided to approve planning permission with conditions in respect of items 11, 12 and 13. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your attendance this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Exciting times ahead for Leyland Town Centre. Thanks very much for attending. It's only 8:05 tonight. I look forward to seeing you all on March the 9th, when it's going to be a rather busy evening. So if you'd like to fetch your toothbrushes and your sleeping bags with you, I'll see you all then. Okay, thanks very much for the attention.